Chad, what's your favorite game of the weekend?
Favorite game of the weekend, Niners-Cowboys. Can't get away from that one. Maybe it's nostalgic for my childhood, watching those games in the 90s. I mean, going back to the 80s, these were big-time games between these two franchises. But I just think it's just a beautiful game to watch. These colors on the field together. I have long been a proponent of the 49ers uniforms. Some of the best in all of sports, the color combination. But Cowboys, Niners on the field next to each other, always beautiful. I'm most excited about this one.
For me, it's Bengals, Bills.
That's second place for me.
I mean, and both of those are on Sunday.
That's a good answer.
Two great games on Saturday as well. Here's one big thing on every NFL game for the divisional round. And, Chad, let's start. We'll just go in order of kickoff. Jacksonville on the road against Kansas City. We get the rematch from Week 10, where Kansas City opened with a 20-point advantage. And Jacksonville tried to close the gap. They weren't boat raced. It felt like it was going to be. But this is one of those games where the Jags have to come out firing on all cylinders. This is not some comeback kid in Trevor Lawrence, because you can't do that against KC. They have to go toe-to-toe, and then they also have to make some breaks for themselves. Kansas City's defense doesn't get the ball back that often. They don't have many takeaways compared to the other defenses that are remaining. But they're right outside the top 10 in total defense, which is vastly different than where they were entering the playoffs last year. Trevor Lawrence has got to protect the football and then rely on great games from Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram, who we saw here in Nashville have a fantastic performance, the best performance of any single game from a tight end this year. They have to click on all cylinders against a Kansas City team that I think comes out maybe a bit sluggish, but turns it on in the second half. I think Jacksonville can hang with them. And here's Zay Jones, who I think could be an X factor. He's coming off a year where he had a career high in catches, receiving yards. Third straight postseason game is what he can have with a touchdown reception. He also caught 10 passes whenever they met in Week 10, Zay Jones. Be on the lookout for him against Kansas City's defense. He's like a third option, but he's great for Trevor Lawrence in this matchup.
If I had to pick one game I think could be a blowout, it's this one. But we're in the divisional round now. I mean, there's no game you look at and say, oh, this is definitely going to be this team by 3 scores or anything close to that. But I'm leaning towards this one. If one could get out of hand, it's Chiefs over Jags.
And KC doesn't have much of a run game, but they do have a solid running back in Jerick McKinnon this year. He led all NFL running backs, 9 touchdown catches this season. That's the most by a running back in a single season in the Super Bowl era. He's also averaging 110 yards from scrimmage per game. So while they don't have much of a run game to lean on, the extension of their run game through McKinnon is fantastic. And the young, fast Jags defense is going to be trying to track him down. Meanwhile, ETN is also capable of taking over. This is a fun game.
That play call to ETN on 4th and short, where instead of they lined up where it was going to be the sneak with the players from behind shoving the quarterback forward, and it ran to the outside with ETN, that made it an easy field goal to win the game. A brilliant play call, gutsy play call in that moment on 4th and short, but ETN showed off that speed on that play.
Do you trust Daniel Jones? I don't.
I think my hesitation probably answers the question.
I want to buy into this. I'm just not sold on the fact that he's going to go back-to-back performances where he takes over a postseason game. Philadelphia has won its last 9 home games against the New York Giants. And to me, this is, when we talk blowouts, this could be the blowout of the weekend. A lot of people are picking the Giants. I want to buy into what Daniel Jones has done. It's a phenomenal story and turnaround. He's earned the right to be back as the starting quarterback for Brian Daboll, who's going to be coach of the year. But I think everything stacks up well for Philly in this matchup. Everyone's pointing to Week 18. Rewind to their first matchup where Philly won easily in the regular season, and Jalen Hurts is not on the injury report. That's a key factor for a defense that can get after the quarterback with 65-plus sacks, great on the back end of their D. receiving options for days, a run game that always shows up, and a quarterback that's truly dual threat, I think they're ready to take over. And whoever they end up hosting for the NFC Championship game, that's going to be the game of the year.
My question to your question about Daniel Jones is, do we truly trust Jalen Hurts in this game? I trust Jalen Hurts in that Eagles offense more than what his supporting cast is for Daniel Jones. But I think it's a viable question right now also with the lack of true big-time playoff experience.
Hodgins for Jones is a great target for the Giants here. He led the Giants 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown against Minnesota. And he has a touchdown catch in 5 of his last 6 games, which counts last week. Can they keep that going? This is a group where, and maybe I think it's probably still the case, I think if you poll the average NFL fan, I think the average fan, Chad, is hard-pressed to name 5 players on their roster. And I'm giving you 2 with Jones and Saquon.
You know what that leads to? NFL Coach of the Year.
Yep.
Because there's not huge star power on the team, and they're here in the divisional round.
And against a division opponent. So that can also benefit Dayball and company. And the X factor can be Wink Martindale, who came over from Baltimore, and now he's tasked with slowing down the Philadelphia offense. Sunday, we kick things off. Bengals, Bills. Cincinnati enters having won 9 straight games. The Bills have won 8 straight. But Miami is the only playoff team that they faced throughout this stretch of 8 straight wins. Now, of course, they kicked off against Cincinnati. That game ended midway through the first quarter. They have 4 wins of their 14 against teams that made the postseason. Buffalo. Miami played them twice. And they also played against KC in Baltimore. Not saying I think that's a detriment to this team. They're the best, if not, second best, I think, top to bottom to Philly. And I would certainly take them over KC. I would take Cincinnati over KC right now. But Josh Allen, while he's excellent, he's elite, if he continues to play the way he's been playing, Chad, Cincinnati's going to win this game. And it won't be by a single possession. Josh Allen's turning it over way too much. 3 more turnovers this past Sunday, and he now has an NFL high 22 turnovers, 16 interceptions, 6 fumbles, lost fumbles, and he has 6 picks in his last 3 starts. It's routine. It's not a one-off for him anymore.
We don't like to talk about what happened in the game that Damar Hamlin had his incident in, but I believe it was 7-0 Cincinnati, and they were driving.
7-3.
It was 7-3. They were driving maybe to go up 14-3 at that point in the game. I say that to say this. I need to see Buffalo play well. They didn't play well against the Dolphins. They allowed a team that had no business hang around.
Yeah.
Because they played poorly. This is a really good Bills team. They need a good performance. Obviously, to win, they're going to need to play really well against the Cincinnati team. But for just the sake of believing in this team right now, they need to come out and have a great game. That's what I want to see on Sunday when they take the field. We haven't really seen it. I don't think the New England performance was particularly great. You got 2 Naheem Hines kickoff returns for touchdowns. That's the difference in the game.
Yep.
Other than that, they're dead even with a pretty mediocre to bad,
very average
Patriots team.
Yep.
So let's pick it up right now, Buffalo.
Buffalo's defense, is this the game where they make up for the loss of Von Miller, or is this the game where we actually see the lack of Von Miller come and play a factor? Because Cincinnati's offensive line banged up. They're going to miss 3 starters from the group that they overhauled this offseason. Starting a couple rookies now. And can they get after Joe Burrow? Can they put pressure on him? Cincy's defense not great on 3rd down. Buffalo's defense has been. Can they take advantage of a depleted offensive line for Cincy? And Gabe Davis, 6 catches, 113 yards, a touchdown last week. 3rd straight playoff game with a receiving touchdown. Of course, we know the game of his life against KC. Can they connect again and allow Buffalo to have the 1-2 punch? I think this is a fantastic game.
Again, it just sounds simple. I need to see Buffalo play well.
Well, but
they haven't done that.
Cincy didn't play well last week either.
No.
But I trust Joe Burrow.
We're going to be trusting Joe Burrow or Josh Allen out of this game. That's the big question.
Cowboys 49ers, Chad's game of the week.
Yes.
Prescott against the Bucs, fantastic. Not many quarterbacks, though, have been fantastic against San Francisco's defense. This is a defense that finished the regular season number 1 in scoring. They've allowed just 16 points per game. Total defense, number 1 in the NFL. They, on average, 300 total yards per game. Opposing quarterbacks average 223 passing yards per game and just over 1 touchdown per game. That's unbelievable in a passing league and a league that's set up where the rules are against you if you're a defensive-minded football team.
One more chance for Brock Purdy to shock the world and show that he is the next Tom Brady. That happens this weekend.
Tony Pollard, the Cowboys' top running back, and their best offensive weapon. Career highs in yards from scrimmage this year, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. Will they just rely on the run game instead of putting it all on the shoulder of Dak Prescott?
They're going to try to rely on the run game until they have to rely on the shoulder of Dak Prescott. That is my prediction for this game. That is going to be the game plan. They're not going to be able to do it. 49ers are too good just to have the Cowboys run all over them and win this game. They're going to run it. They're going to run it well at times, but this is going to come down to Dak Prescott not screwing it up. He didn't do it against Tampa. In fact, he was brilliant in that game. Terrific performance. They're going to need that again from Dak Prescott in this game. This is not going to be a line up, run it, don't make big plays, the quarterback position win for the Cowboys. He's going to have to play huge in this game.
Well, and the Dallas defense, you alluded to this earlier this week, can the Dallas defense rattle the rookie quarterback? With Micah Parsons and Diggs and the entire crew.
They rattled Tom Brady.
The entire crew that has been great in stretches. They finish the season. They can get after the QB, but they finish the season not really rushing the quarterback all that well. Can they get after Purdy? Can they force him into some mistakes and then take advantage of short field options with Prescott, who looks locked in? I mean, the way he played last week, I think that carries over. There's a confidence level of just getting over the hump against a very average playoff team in Tampa that I think can carry over to San Francisco and what's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it's Brady, not a good offense this year. A lot of issues with that. But I felt like he was legitimately confused post-snap in the game against the Cowboys. If they can do that to Tom Brady, they can do it to Brock Purdy in this game.
That's one big thing on every NFL game. And throughout this, you mentioned Brady, no Rodgers, no quarterback over the age of 30 years old. Prescott's the oldest quarterback remaining. And what we had a big discussion topic on this past summer, where this felt like the passing of the torch to the new generation of quarterback, the new era of quarterbacks. And it's very lopsided, AFC, where it's stacked in the AFC, top to bottom, with the playoff status of what you expect from the QBs. But even from the NFC perspective, with Jalen Hurts coming on, Daniel Jones playing very well, Brock Purdy being one of the top storylines of the NFL, especially if they win this week and he goes to the NFC Championship game, and Dak Prescott, the QB of America's team, potentially taking Dallas to the NFC Championship game with a chance to host it if the Giants pull the upset as well.
Crazy that Mahomes is 27 and Allen is 26. Feels like, especially with Mahomes, we've been talking about them for 10 years.
Well,
it feels like they've been in the league for a decade.
With
as much as that we've talked about them, especially Patrick Mahomes.
The other thing that's crazy is Stetson Bennett would be the third oldest quarterback, right? No,
yeah.
Fourth.
He's 25.
Yeah. Even fourth oldest remaining of the active QBs.
It's nuts. I thought that the playoffs at this point, without a Brady or a Rodgers especially, would be dampened a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that way with this group of teams and quarterbacks left. I don't feel that way going to this weekend. I feel like we've got a good set of quarterbacks, a good set of teams. Crazy, though, to look at the ages of some of these guys that you feel like you've been talking about them forever, and they're still in their mid to late 20s.
Well, and then I think this would also give me some hesitation depending on the job status, because it is about trying to keep your job. Let's throw that out there, too, from general managers and head coaches. But it's about winning, first and foremost. That's how you keep your job. I would also be looking at this as, is the investment in Brady and Rodgers where it's more valuable than trying to go
find the
next
one of these guys?
Guy? Yeah. Because I think we're really seeing the changing of the guard. Now, it's very much like I'm thinking in a different mindset if I'm in the NFC compared to the AFC. But if you're in the AFC, I mean, look at Denver has, they would like to take back what they've done, right, with Russell Wilson.
There's only one or two teams, I feel like, every year that's in that position that the roster around quarterback is good enough to take a swing on a guy who's 45 or a guy who's 40 to be the quarterback for a year, maybe two, to make that happen. Hutton, I think with everyone else, you're always looking for that next guy. Houston definitely in a position looking for the next guy. Carolina, got to find the next guy in the draft. You got to find this 20-something that's going to be in this list that we've been showing you of quarterbacks in the playoffs. You got to find that guy. It's not worth it to go for the older quarterback for a one-year fix. It's just a very limited group of teams that you can realistically point to and say they may be really good with the right guy. That's the teams we talked about. Vegas, the Jets, maybe Miami. Outside of that, there's really no one. Everyone else either has a quarterback or is in a clear position to find the next young quarterback.
And 5 of the 8 QBs remaining are first-round picks.
Yep.
Purdy's the outlier. Final pick in the NFL draft with an amazing story. Prescott was a 4th-round pick, and Jalen Hurts a 2nd-round pick, 53rd overall, with a chance to take over as the top QB in the NFC. But beyond that, the investment comes through the first-round draft, which goes back to the Sean Payton discussion and why Houston makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely. Huge news in recruiting, by the way, in the transfer portal. Eric Gilbert, who's a former number 1 or number 2 overall player in the country, 5-star tight end, was at Georgia, got lost in the shuffle behind Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, didn't play at tight end. He is headed to Nebraska. And Matt Rule, transferring from Georgia to Nebraska. Matt Rule's going to do good things at Nebraska. He's going to recruit well.
What's the start for him been like so far?
It's been good. I mean, it's not been overwhelming, but they've had an uptick in recruiting.
Just like this.
And the transfer portal's been good to them.
I think he can win relatively fast there.
I told all my in-laws in Nebraska this when they were asking about my thoughts on it. I said he's going to look like a hero because they're going to go 7-5 this year.
And
they've been so bad at winning close games. I don't think that Nebraska, from a roster standpoint, is that far off, even with their bad records, from being 7-5, 8-4, especially in the Big Ten West, which is incredibly weak.
Yes.
So he's going to look great because they're going to go to a bowl game and be a couple games over 500. That's my prediction.
What's his offense going to be able to look like in year one?
Depends on who's playing quarterback. Casey Thompson's coming back, who was the transfer from Texas.
Can he do what he wants to do?
The transfer from Sims, Blake Sims from Georgia Tech is transferring in. So they're going to have a mobile guy at quarterback. Yeah, I think that they're going to be able to do most of what they want to try to do. Obviously not a finished product based on who he needs to bring in for recruiting, but it's not going to be bad.